Good morning to everybody, to participants and to the speakers, but also good afternoon and good evening, depending where you are in the world. It's my great pleasure to welcome you on this webinar, and the title is Reflection on Engagement with Cities and Regions to Enhance Implementation of the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and the Road to CBD COP15. Well, I introduce myself very shortly. I'm Stefania Romano, and I'm the coordinator for the Cities with Nature initiative, advocacy and recruitment. And before I continue, I would like to share with you some house rules. The webinar is being recorded, therefore by attending it, you just agree that it's being recorded. All participants are muted and their video is disabled. We will have a chat box where we will place the speakers' bios, but also useful links and their websites. At the end of the session, we will have at the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer sessions, and you can just write it in the chat box, and we'll answer back to you, mostly via email, most likely, because many of the participants are just being present in with their video recording. Therefore, you just put your email, and we'll answer your questions via email. This webinar series is hosted by ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Center, and that's the goal is to be keeping the constituency of local and subnational governments informed and updated on the post-2020 global biodiversity framework processes. ICLEI is a member of the Global Task Force and local and regional governments, and it serves as a focal point for the UN CBD in the Global Task Force. Its members are just presented on this very slide. We also wish to acknowledge the generous support from the Post-2020 Biodiversity Framework EU support towards this webinar series. As you can see from this slide, this is the 25th webinar in the series, and 3 more to come before CBD COP15 takes place from the 11th to the 24th of October. Now, our program focuses on the key outcomes of the plenary sessions of the subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice, SubStat 24, and the 3rd meeting of the subsidiary body on implementation, CBI 3, which took place in May and June this year. We first hear from Sue Campbell, representing the Scottish Government, followed by reflection of Renata Gomez from Regions 4, and Kobe Brown from ICLEI, and finally from Shu Zhu from ICLEI East Asia Office in Beijing, who will update us on the forthcoming 7th Global Biodiversity Summit to be held as an official parallel event to CBD COP15. Now, before that, I give you a short update on the advocacy webinar events. As you can see, over the past weeks, there have been a number of successful virtual vertical multi-level dialogues on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and Edinburgh Declaration in Peru, Mexico, Colombia, South Africa, Canada, China, and Brazil. The next major event in the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework is the 3rd meeting of the open-ended working group on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, which will take place from the 23rd of August to the 3rd of September. Now, the 3rd of September is also the day when the IUCN World Conservation Congress opens, and also where the IUCN Local Action Summit will take place. There have been a number of webinars over the June months, which are leading up to the IUCN Local Action Summit, and you can see the link here. So if you want to have more information, you just click the link. Now, it's my pleasure to be introducing our 4 speakers. The first one will be Sue Campbell. She's Policy Manager, Biodiversity and International Engagement from the Scottish Government. Renata Gomez, Biodiversity Program Manager, Regions 4. Kobe Brown, ICLEI Deputy Secretary General and Global Director of ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Center, and Shu Zhu from the regional director and China representative from ICLEI East Asia Secretariat. Now, it's my pleasure to hand over to our first speaker, Sue Campbell. Unfortunately, she's not here with us today, but she just sent us a video recording, and she will speak about the Edinburgh Declaration, the draft decision, and the plan of action. So, Patricia, please play the video. Please, thank you.
Hello, my name's Sue Campbell from the Edinburgh Process Secretariat. and the Scottish Government. I want to pass on my thanks to the organisers of today's event for this invitation to speak to you today. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you in person, but I hope this video message is helpful in describing the Edinburgh process for subnational governments, cities and local authorities on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and the progress that we've made so far. So the Edinburgh process has been a fantastic global partnership approach developed over the last 2 years, with the Scottish Government leading the engagement of the subnational and local constituency for the UN Convention on Biological Diversity on their development of the post-2020 GBF and new biodiversity targets for 2030. The Edinburgh process could not have happened without the tireless support of all the partner organisations that you see here, particularly in these very challenging of times. The Edinburgh process gathered the views of over 400 participants through 3 online consultations covering the zero draft of the post-2020 GBF, the existing subnational plan of action and the Edinburgh Declaration. This was supplemented with a number of thematic sessions on specific issues. The outcomes of the consultation on the plan of action were used to develop the draft CBD decision and are presented in more detail in our formal reports to the CBD, in the documents which CBD has published, and these are underpinned by the commitments set out in the Edinburgh Declaration. The Edinburgh Declaration has currently been signed or endorsed by over 150 governments and organisations. Our consultations showed a lack of reference to subnational authorities within the post-2020 GBF and a lack of emphasis on vertical integration, despite the reference to the whole of government approach. This is important when some regions are implementing 70% of biodiversity legislation at the subnational and local level. The consultations indicate that subnational and local governments shouldn't be just another stakeholder, but that their competency and implementation should be recognised throughout the post-2020 framework. Subnational and local governments are in many cases uniquely placed to implement the framework through, for example, mainstreaming and in undertaking nature-based solutions. We find that whilst subnational governments have engaged with the existing plan of action, which was endorsed at COP10 in Aichi under Decision 1022, there is still room for improvement across all areas. And that's why we put forward a recommendation to the CBD for a renewed plan of action and dedicated decision for subnational and local governments. This is currently being considered by the CBD's subsidiary body for implementation under Agenda Item 11 on mainstreaming. We've had a positive response to our recommendation, and we are continuing to engage with parties to ensure there's an increased recognition of the role of subnational and local governments in developing the post-2020 GBF. And we're engaging with parties to adopt the dedicated decision at COP15. So how will the plan of action be implemented? Firstly, it will support collaboration between subnational governments, cities and local authorities and their national governments. The aim is to take a whole of government approach as called for in the post-2020 GBF and to ensure harmonisation between different levels of government whilst drawing upon their different strengths. The plan of action is a flexible framework which can be adapted for the situation in each country. If the long-term approach to mainstreaming is to be adopted, then subnational governments should be involved in the platforms and discussions which will enable better mainstreaming of biodiversity at subnational levels. And this is a multi-stakeholder engagement platform called for in the Declaration. The advisory committees for subnational and local governments established under Decision 1022 will continue to operate and advise on subnational ambitions by participating in CBD processes. And finally, subnational and local governments bring their own finances and resources, but we recognise that it's important for some of those to be able to access global funding streams, private and philanthropic finances. The subnational constituency is currently considering how best to organise itself cooperatively to ensure that the post-2020 framework is successfully implemented at the subnational level, using the Plan of Action as a basis. In order to streamline reporting on the Plan of Action, it's envisaged that this should be done through parties' national reports. A high percentage of parties are already reporting on subnational activities currently, so this shouldn't be an additional burden. Information captured on commitment platforms such as Cities with Nature and Regions with Nature can also contribute to reporting efforts. Finally, an interim review of the effectiveness of the Plan of Action will be presented to SBI 5 as part of the regular review of the implementation of the objectives of the Convention and its protocols, the post-2020 GBF, and the long-term approach to mainstreaming. The Edinburgh process builds upon progress made across the last decade to ensure that vertically harmonised approach to delivering the post-20 GBF. Building upon previous subnational declarations, such as the Carta de Sao Paulo and the Quintana Roo Communique, it demonstrates to the Convention the willingness and readiness of subnational governments across the world to play a greater role in implementing the framework. The declaration contains 10 commitments by subnational governments, cities and local authorities, and 4 calls to action by parties for the next decade. It's available in 9 languages and is found on the website shown here. With over 150 signatures already, we continue to invite subnational governments, cities and local authorities across the world to join the growing support for the Plan of Action ahead of COP15. We're also inviting national governments to publicly endorse the declaration and the outcomes it seeks. This will be important to gathering support for the COP decision. Some of the declaration commitments are set out here, alongside our calls to action by CBD parties. We and our Edinburgh process partners are hugely enthused by the support the declaration has already generated for this action, and we want to continue to build upon that towards COP15. It's not an onerous process to sign up to the declaration. Your application is processed by our small Edinburgh process team, usually within a couple of weeks. The declaration should be signed by a political leader representing their subnational government, city or the local authority. Please send us an email application, including the information asked for here, and if needed, any letter of designated authority. Also, be sure to use an organisational or official email address in order to aid our vetting process. Once verified, you'll receive a confirmation email and your organisation and the name of the person signing will appear on our web pages. We will submit the signatures to the Convention at their upcoming meetings, including at COP15. And this will show the level of support by the subnational constituency for the Plan of Action and for a dedicated COP decision. It's vital that we gather state party support to pave the way for the adoption of a dedicated decision at COP15, ensuring the greater inclusion of subnational and local governments within the post-20 GBF. And we also want adopted a renewed Plan of Action for subnational authorities, which will act as a framework for implementation over the next decade. So, as well as signing the Edinburgh Declaration, you can support the Edinburgh process by first highlighting the Edinburgh process reports to your national focal point. These set out the findings from our consultations and highlight the important issues for subnational governments relating to scientific and technical and implementation aspects. And these reports are already published on the CBD's webpage. And second, you can ask your national focal point to support the updated Plan of Action and the adoption of a dedicated decision for subnational governments, local authorities and cities at COP15. Both of these actions can be taken forward by issuing a letter to your national focal point. We've prepared a draft template for anyone who wishes to engage in this way. And you can find the template on our Edinburgh process webpage that's listed on this next and final slide. If anyone would like further information, please contact the Edinburgh Process Secretariat at the email shown here. Our Edinburgh Process webpage is also shown here, as are the various publications which I mentioned relating to the papers on the CBD webpage. I'd like to thank the organisers again for inviting me to speak to you today, and I'd like to thank you for listening. Thanks very much and take care.
So quite interesting and substantial information from Sue Campbell about the process itself, the sessions which are ongoing, and the recommendations, the plan of action, how it's been reported, and how subnational cities and local authorities are involved, and above all, how and why to be signing the Edinburgh Declaration. I will continue with the presentation with the slides. Can you see the, okay. The next speaker is going to be Renata Gomez. She will share reflections from subnational governments. Again, Renata, unfortunately, is not with us today, but she sent a video recording. And Patricia, please, can you play the video again? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here. My name is Renata Gomez, and I'm with Regions 4. I'm the responsible of the Biodiversity program, and I'm here to share with you the significance and the importance of having a plan of action come out of CBD COP15 from the perspective of subnational governments and, of course, Regions 4 perspective. So I would like to begin with a brief introduction of on the general objectives that we are pursuing with the plan of action on subnational governments, cities, and other local authorities. Basically, what we need is increase our engagement to support the implementation of national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and of course, the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, improve the exchange of lessons learned, and support subnational cities and other local authorities in this process. We need a plan of action that identifies, enhances, and disseminates policy tools, guidelines to facilitate subnational action on biodiversity, and of course, that build capacity. And we need a plan of action that helps us facilitate the development or awareness raising programs on biodiversity. Basically, and in sum, what we need is a plan of action that engages actively the advisory committees on subnational governments and the advisory committee on local governments to provide input and support to the implementation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. We do this, we at Regions 4, we are foreseeing that we can do this, of course, like I said, with the platform that the advisory committee provides, and we are the coordinators of this platform, but also through initiatives like the Regions for Biodiversity Learning Platform. I will very briefly share with you the very basic keys to these two initiatives and how we at Regions 4 are envisioning its use within the plan of action. Basically, the advisory committee was created by the CBD through decision 10/22. This is the specific decision that we want to build upon, and that we are hoping that increases and steps up the ambition for subnational cities and local authorities within the CBD. Of course, this decision was adopted in COP10. It created the advisory committee that is now coordinated, like I said, by Regions 4 and the government of Quebec. We basically advocate for subnational governments at the heart of the CBD negotiations, and we facilitate a dialogue between the members of the committee and the different stakeholders, including, of course, the parties to the CBD. We foster partnerships to support subnational efforts on the ground by fostering international cooperation, of course, among regions, and we increase leadership and collaboration among the members of the committee. Also, we use the learning platform that I mentioned before to provide technical input and create knowledge that is useful to the global discussions on biodiversity, discussions that are going to be shared through the channel of the advisory committee. So having a platform that is dedicated to gather this kind of knowledge and to foster exchange and to provide a collaborative environment is essential, because we need the plan of action to come and foster and support these initiatives that already exist. And this is, of course, at the subnational level of government. One example on how we do this work is we create reports, information documents that are useful to our discussions and that gather recommendations to the CBD parties on specific topics. This, the report that you can see on your screen is the most recent one that we submitted as an information document to SBI3, the subsidiary body on implementation, and that gathers recommendation around capacity building, opportunities to strengthening partnerships, mechanisms to monitor implementation, and the obstacles that are blocking the mainstreaming of biodiversity at the subnational level of government. With this said, we need to think of a plan of action that actually implements and channels what we are already doing and that we want to do even better, right? So the actions that are the plan of action aims to take are the following. Development and implementation of biodiversity strategies, of course, and action plans that are reflecting the involvement of national governments. Of course, we are aiming at harmonization between levels of government and mainstreaming. We also hope that one of the actions is resource mobilization, so much needed for our level of government. And I highlighted the following three because they are specifically important for the initiatives that we are Regions 4 are developing. One, capacity development. The next one, communication, education, and public awareness. And the next one is assessment and improving information for decision making. These three in particular are important because those are the fields in which we at Regions 4 have been gathering our efforts on, specifically in capacity development and in improving and in making the case of how critical and important subnational governments are in the implementation of the convention. Like I said, it's quite a challenge to be able to showcase what subnational governments are doing. And we believe that gathering this knowledge is essential to actually fulfill the actions that we are hoping to get in the plan of action. One initiative that we are hoping to launch at the upcoming CBD, and that is closely related to what I've been talking about, the importance of capacity building and so on, is the case study database, which is a permanent initiative of Regions 4, and that is, of course, a collection on the practice and safeguarding biodiversity at the subnational level of government. It aims at developing a robust knowledge database of innovative solutions on the subnational experience of the implementation of the global biodiversity targets. More importantly, it aims at turning good practices into tools and making them replicable and accessible to subnational governments all over the world. As I have mentioned before, we know that it's fundamental to promote this experience sharing and this knowledge that some subnational governments have. So the thematic areas that we are focusing are the ones that you can see on your screen. As you can see, they're very broad. And we strongly believe that the lessons that subnational governments gathering in one place of the world can so we are hoping to foster and actually fulfill the mandate of the plan of actions by doing this kind of work. And yeah, we at Regions 4 will be very happy to hear from you and to get in touch. In the next slide, you're going to see my contact information and of course a link in which you can learn more of what we are doing and the next steps that we're taking towards the CBD COP15. Thank you very much.
Again, quite interesting information from Renata Gomez about Regions 4 and the initiatives on biodiversity, the role of the Advisory Committee on Subnational Governments about Diversity, and how important it is to be fostering exchange through the learning platform that they have set up, and their inputs to CBD negotiations and how focused they are on actions. Our next speaker, it's my pleasure to give the floor to Kobe Brand, who will just giving us the reflections of local governments. Please, Kobe, the floor is yours. And I will scroll.
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful pleasure for me to be here today again with this community that has been building up so effectively over the last years. And today, Stefania, I would very much like to thank our previous speakers. They're part of this family of subnational local governments that are really building and coming together in ways like never before to build the future platform for cities and regions around the world to engage more critically with one another, but also with their national governments. And I would just like to very quickly point out that there's a long history that we are very proud of and which I'd like to reflect on just a little bit before I go forward today. So yes, it's come a long way. Local Action for Biodiversity Lab was actually a very critical program, first of its kind. I think if you can take me back to the previous slide, please. If you can go back one slide, please. That program, I think the other way, please, just back, that one. It's no, the next one. Just stay on this one till I ask. No, one back. Thank you, this one. Stay there, please, till I ask you to move on, because I want to speak a little bit about the history. So Local Action for Biodiversity, or LAB, was a pioneering program and started in 2006 for cities, by cities. Cities actually approached ICLEI and long-standing partner IUCN at the time to start a program of cities to take action collectively with one another and learn together in a cohort around what it means to mainstream biodiversity at local level. At that stage, it was the only one of its kind, and 21 pioneer cities participated in the original Local Action for Biodiversity, or LAB, initiative, which is very well known in the world today. And ICLEI is very proud to have been there in the beginning to support those 21 cities with partners, IUCN and later many others. And LAB grew into a program with well over 50 cities and other levels of subnational governments taking part. And we understood that there was a huge need for cities, when they talk about sustainability, to also bring nature into the equation. And of course, so they should, because as Renata has pointed out and as Sue has pointed out, most of the action, most of the decisions taken at global level through the COPs, etc., find their way through and filter through for action and activation at the local and subnational level. So these mayors then also mobilized internationally, and one of the critical meetings was the meeting in 2007 in Curitiba, where 32 mayors from around the world came together with a CBD secretariat, and actually there were also national government representatives there, I think there were national representatives from a number of states, including Brazil, where the meeting was held, but the CBD executive secretary himself at the time was there, and out of it came the Curitiba Declaration on Cities and Biodiversity. So the CBD, from a very early stage, the Secretariat and its parties realized and recognized that they need subnational governments, and subnational governments at all levels can really contribute tremendously and should be enabled to contribute to the fullest of their ability to meeting the CBD objectives and the 2010 biodiversity target. And then, of course, there was our first summit of cities in Bonn. And thanks to the wonderful hosts in Bonn, the mayor at the time of Bonn, the Bonn community, the international UN community that was already forming in Bonn, we had a fantastic first city summit on the outskirts of the COP. And it was not just on the outskirts, but it was recognized as a fully fledged parallel event to the CBD COP. And ever since then, as you know, the CBD COPs take place every 2 years. But ever since then, the COPs have had this parallel event embedded in the COP program itself, and always in close partnership with the CBD Secretariat, as well as the host country, the host province, and the host city. And we are proud that just later on, my colleague is going to talk more about the 7th Global Biodiversity City Summit of Cities and Subnational Government, when my colleague Shuzu takes the floor after me. But between the first summit and the 7th summit, a lot has happened. A real decade, more than a decade, has gone by. And this decade is a decade where we embedded what we learned in the previous decade, and we actually managed to mobilize many, many hundreds of local and subnational governments amongst ourselves to actually implement action on the ground through lab and other emerging initiatives. But what really stood out was 2010. 2010 was a new era for cities and subnational governments, in the way that at that meeting, at COP10, the Aichi Nagoya Declaration on local authorities and biodiversity was presented to the high-level segment of the COP, and it culminated really in the first ever UN decision directly focused on cities and subnational governments in the Rio framework of Rio Conventions. So the CBD decision 1022 is really a milestone which will go down in the annals of history as a first in the UN Rio Conventions processes, where cities and local authorities and other subnational governments were directly recognized. And this decision has now basically lapsed. And this is the decision that Sue Campbell from the Scottish Government and from Edinburgh was talking about, that we are calling for to be revitalized in a new form, in a new shape, with a new dedicated decision to again give us that institutional backing of the CBD parties around the world, that they are ready and able and willing and very positive towards the contributions and the support that they want to give to cities and subnational governments, and vice versa. Their recognition that cities and subnational governments do have to play a vital and critical role if the Global Biodiversity Framework, which will be adopted at COP15, will in fact be implemented. And now when we look at the Edinburgh process, I mean, we've spoken about how important the Scottish Government, what a critical moment they played in driving the Edinburgh process and culminating in the Edinburgh Declaration. And like Sue, I would like to appeal to you, please sign up for it. Please do commit your subnational local government, your national government, or your organization by signing this process. It is open for signature and will remain open for signature until COP15. So Ikli, also realized during this decade that I spoke of, but also really over the last few COPs, we realized that we need stronger voices, and there are many able and willing organizations like us, city networks, regional government networks, committed groups of actors who want to also be heard and then bring their constituencies to the party. So we have really worked very closely and in such a positive way with our sister city and regional networks, such as Regions 4, the goals, the leading group of subnational governments, Committee of Regions of the European Commission, and Renata mentioned the Subnational Government Advisory Committee, the ACSNG. There is also a similar sister body, the Advisory Committee to the CBD of Cities. So these two advisory committees, one formed by subnational governments, one formed by cities, are actually also, as Renata pointed out, a legacy that we take from COP, the decision COP 1022, where these two bodies were formally recognized. And since then, these bodies provide a very high-level political platform for mayors and governors from around the world to bring their voices in direct contact with the CBD. And in fact, they're called advisory bodies to the CBD. So they provide high-level political advice to the CBD in terms of how to strengthen the role of local and subnational governments. Just stay on this slide for a second more. I'm mindful of time. But then I want to just highlight how very special the Edinburgh process was. We are getting more and more local, subnational and national governments, in fact, putting their pledges and support to the Edinburgh Declaration. But we also coordinated the local and subnational government major group at the CBD meetings and open-ended working group 1 and 3, as well as the informal and formal sessions over the last year and a half of the Substance CBI from, in fact, 2019, and which will culminate in the COP. And these informal and formal sessions were very, very important for our voices to be heard. So we as a community, and here I'm talking about all these sister city and regions networks together, committed to incorporate and coordinate our statements into one joint statement for each discussion point where we wanted to make inputs. These joint written statements are all available. And if Ryan, if you are able to put the link in the chat box, perhaps, of our subnational, local and subnational advocacy website, people will be able to download all the statements that have come from this constituency from 2019 and even before that, also the outcomes of the previous summits, and all the post-2020 GBF documents relevant to cities and regions. This collaboration between us as a cohort, as a big tent, really is important, and it's a first for us, really, where we can see people taking hands from different organizations for the greater good, for making a consolidated voice heard from cities and subnational governments from around the world. And then also these joint statements went to the Substa and the chairs of the COP, and those are reflecting the ambitions of us as a major group altogether. We can now move to the next, which I think is the pre-final slide, which I will go through quickly. So the Edinburgh process, I just wanted to say that history was really made. There you can see the host of parties that have come out in very strong support. They're not the only ones that speak favorably of the Edinburgh Declaration, but these are very strong supporters of the Edinburgh Declaration. And we thank the UK government, we thank the EU, but we also thank very much our colleagues in the Scottish government and specifically also Edinburgh and Sue and her team. But history was really made at SPI 3. The CBD parties produced a conference room paper on the draft decision, which we're calling for, and the plan of action on engagement with subnational governments and cities to enhance the implementation of the GBF. which will come after COP15. This conference room paper is the first of its kind for our constituency in the space of biodiversity, and again, a first of its kind in the Rio Convention, something we can be very, very proud of. And we thank the CBD parties for understanding and taking up this game changer, which is the Edinburgh process, taking it to heart and enabling us to move forward as we critically need to move forward on city and regional activation to the extent that we can actually be ready to start implementing on the ground the GBF as soon as it is adopted at the COP. And in fact, we're not waiting for that. In preparation of that, we have already launched Cities with Nature, a platform which will be and is formally recognized as the commitment and reporting platform for cities around the world, where they can take hands, learn together, be introduced to a variety of tools and mechanisms and initiatives which they can join and be part of. Most of it is free and open, and joining Cities with Nature is free and open. And if there is a city here today that has not yet signed up to Cities with Nature, please join the other 280 plus cities that have already signed up to Cities with Nature and already see the value in taking hands to inspire, to leapfrog, and to move further, faster together. And Cities with Nature is going to be, as I mentioned, the commitment and reporting platform, but there's also a sister network in place in the making, Regions with Nature. And this we are doing in close partnership with the Committee of Regions, Regions 4, and all the other regional network actors around the world. So Cities with Nature and Regions with Nature soon to come. Both will be up and ready. Cities with Nature already is very active. Regions with Nature will soon be active as well. But I do want to give you a little bit of a heads up. On Monday, we're launching a complete new and fantastic functionality for all cities on the Cities with Nature platform. And please, if you are a city that is joined up, please visit and watch social media on Monday coming. There will be a complete new fantastic functionality which you will find very, very useful in your journey in mainstreaming nature and biodiversity in your city, and also in the process. Commit and report to what you're doing, but also share with others what your stories are and learn from each other. So we've presented several joint statements at the Substone SPI, speaking with one voice, as I mentioned, as a community. And our statement at SPI on mainstreaming and the draft decision and plan of actions were in fact, we're very proud that they were sponsored by the EU, Uganda, Colombia, and Peru. And many other parties are coming out on a regular basis in these forums and formal and informal meetings in support of the state draft decision and its associated plan of action. So we are lobbying CBDR parties to support and adopt the draft decision and plan of action at the CBD COP15. We really do envisage that they will. It's been a very consultative and comprehensive process, thanks to Edinburgh, Scotland, the UK, etc. And also thanks to all the regional and cities networks that have taken hands to make this possible. And a supporting series of vertical and multi-level dialogues is currently, as Stefania mentioned in her opening remarks, this series is currently taking place in a number of countries around the world. We encourage you to take part in those and watch this space. I think the link shared in the chat will point you to when and where these multi-level dialogues are taking place with the CBD support. And we are all working together on the proposal for the implementation of the new plan of action. And with that, I think we can move to the next slide. So for me, the main takeout lessons, we can move to the next slide. I just want to thank you with the takeout message is that, yes, we can. And we can do it further, go faster if we go together. And this process has proven it. Right from the early days in 26, right to where we are now in 2021. We're looking forward to the COP15, to our 7th summit, but particularly also to see the Edinburgh Declaration coming through and the commitment for a new decision adopted at COP15 by the parties of the CBD. I thank you, and please, here are also some of the links. We are very, very happy to engage with you and discuss more how you, as a city or a region or an organization, can come together with us. There are many partners already that have joined Cities with Nature, and here we are counting in IUCN, the Nature Conservancy, WWF, Cities for Forests, so many, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, so many organizations coming together, taking hands to streamline and mainstream and fast track action at the local level by urban communities, by city leaders, and by city technical experts, as well as their regional government counterparts. Whole of government, whole of society approaches and vertical integration is what we're calling for. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to address you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Colby. So inspirational, your speech, as always, I would say, and so interesting to be learning all the history and story behind the biodiversity agenda and processes and the action which is on the ground on behalf of cities and all the other processes, events, and initiatives which are going on. And as you're saying, just with hands united. Our next speaker is Shuju from China, from our ICLEI Secretariat Director, and he will update us on the 7th Global Biodiversity Summit of Cities and some national governments. Please, Shu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefania. I think Kobe might need to close your screen sharing so I can open my slides. Or someone is sharing still?
Yes, I stopped my sharing. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I think yes. Okay. Can you see now my screen?
Yes, you are. Yes, it's on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to my colleagues for organizing such a nice event, and also it's my pleasure to give an update about the preparation status of the 7th Global Summit of Local and Subnational Governments under the COP15 this year. So first of all, I have to admit that there has been a lot of uncertainty on the logistic and the overall plan of the COP15. So it also has a direct impact on the preparation of the 7th summit. That's why we have not provided a timely update and information to all the partners and concerned the local and subnational governments about the plan. However, today is a good opportunity to let you know the overall picture and also our initial thinking in order for you to be informed. So first of all, my colleagues, Kobe and also the previous speaker already touched upon the previous Global Summit. That is an official parallel event under the COP. So we have held the 6th summit together by ICLEI and all the partners. I think this is a very important platform to inform the local and subnational government constituency on the CBD Convention and also voice our concerns and also recommendations to the parties on the implementation and local actions. So it is very important to have such a platform to extend and share also our actions and best practices. So following to the previous 6 summits, now we're planning to have the 7th one on the COP15 in Kunming, China. We all know that this COP has been postponed already twice. Now it's scheduled on 11th to 24th of October this year. However, there is still uncertainty as so far the CBD Secretary has not announced the logistic plan, including the detailed plan for the 8 parallel events. So the 7th summit is one of it. We are still working with the CBD Secretary and also the Chinese government as host on to confirm the specific date, but we have already, among the key organizing partners, we have already proposed to both to have this summit in parallel or back-to-back with the COP15 in order to facilitate the exchange between the local subnational government delegates with the parties. So initial plan is to have a key summit events for 2 days, but also some side events might last longer. And this year, due to the impact of the COVID, it might be a hybrid format of both having an offline venue in Kunming City, China, but also many might have to participate virtually through online platform. So according to the agreement between civil sector and also the host government, so there will be 4 co-hosts: civil sector, the Ministry of Ecology Environment of China, Yunnan Provincial Government, the host region of COP15, as well as ICLAI, and also China Environment News and Kunming Municipal Government will be co-organizing, providing logistic support to the organization of this summit. But in addition, we have also a number of, not to name all of them here, partners who are working closely with the ICLAI and the host on the preparation and organization of the 7th summit, including, for example, our colleagues also mentioned, the EU Committee of Regions, Region 4, the goals, and also some new partners like World Bank, and also the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank as such. So the theme is also reflecting the overall theme of the COP15. We have a preliminary idea to focus on ecological civilization, urban living in harmony with the nature. So this is the overall plan for the 7th summit. Then I'll go to more details. So we have a few objectives in consultation with the major partners and also some of the local subnational governments. First of all, we feel that this would be a good opportunity to improve our local subnational government constituents' understanding of the CBD and also its policy instruments, and strengthen their engagement in the global process, particularly under the this milestone COP to adopt the post-20 global biodiversity framework, but also explore those synergy between the biodiversity agenda with other key global agenda like the climate change and also the sustainable development goals. Secondly, to facilitate dialogues and exchange between local subnational government and the parties, the CBD parties, national governments, as well as international partners to coordinate synergize actions and to integrate biodiversity into urban policy and planning. Thirdly, also is very important is to mobilize additional resources to support local subnational government's actions in implementing the to be adopted post-2020 global framework. Lastly, but not least, is to promote knowledge sharing and peer learning on local actions and best practices. Also help local and subnational government to really adapt and implement nature-based solutions to cope with their challenges faced brought by the climate change, etc. So it will have plenary session, thematic session, but also we have proposed to the Chinese host to have also a longer time of pavilion for more exchange on a small scale, and also some exhibition to share some of these cases provided by the participating local subnational governments. So some of the key topics are being listed here, including, of course, explore the engagement of local subnational governments in the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. I think this is also the key objective of the Edinburgh process was mentioned by our colleague Sue from Scotland, and also what local governments and subnational government can contribute to implement the post-2020 global framework. Secondly is to further mainstream biodiversity and ecosystem protection in the urban century and promoting cities in nature. And also some of these specific topics will be related to the protection of urban wetlands, and also the green or ecological industry and circular economy, circular transition in urban context, but also mainstreaming nature-based solution into urban development, and also building synergy between biodiversity and also other key global agenda like climate change, SDG as mentioned. Another topic will be focusing on the promotion of nature capital and ecosystem services to help our local and subnational government stakeholders to conduct more valuation and assessment on the natural capital they are processing. But also we have also interest to promote extend focusing on ecotourism as a major concern of many local and subnational governments. And also in reflection of the impact of COVID-19 in the cities and regions, another key topic is to explore the enhancement of resilience in the current context and under the pandemic, and also how to secure more finance and resources for local and subnational actions. Of course, to promote dialogue and cooperation between the science and policymakers. So these are the preliminary list of topics that will be focused by the thematic sessions and also other events under the summit. We expect that there will be a number of voluntary initiatives announced by the 7th summit by both of the participating local and subnational governments, and also the network of local subnational government and also CDP parties and partner organizations mentioned. A major outcome paper would be named as a Kunming Declaration, which will reflect the vision and the commitments of cities and regions, how to boost urban biodiversity actions, and particularly with the aim after the adaptation of the new plan of actions, as mentioned by my colleague Kobe. And also this outcome paper will be submitted and voiced to the COP15 parties by the high-level segments. This, of course, will need to be confirmed if that same will be organized in parallel with the COP15 high-level segment. But also a proposal from the host country, China, is to launch a so-called Biodiversity Charming City Award. This will start from the 7th summit. Maybe for the first award, this we will focus on China. Then maybe later on we'll scale up to a global level. So this will be led by both ICLEI and one of the co-organizers of the summit, the China Environment News. But of course, we are also in close consultation and communication with all the key partners and stakeholders on other expected outcomes. So we welcome also proposal recommendations from all of you, all the community of local subnational governments to provide your recommendation, advice, and insights on what outcomes and initiatives might be presented at this summit. Some of the examples just listed, one of them is the updated version of the Singapore City Biodiversity Index. And also ICLEI team here in East Asia and China, we are also working with the Singapore National Park Boards closely to develop and translate the new version into Chinese. We are going to use this summit to launch it in our region, but also promote the new version to a global scale. Another one is what Kobe just mentioned, the Cities with Nature and Regions with Nature platform as a major knowledge sharing, reporting, and commitment platform. We encourage more local subnational governments and partners to join this to work together with us to facilitate such kind of exchange of knowledge, actions, and also commitments. So as said, there is certain challenge and uncertainty about the final date and the logistic plan of the 7th summit. But before that, our work cannot be stopped, and our exchange, like today's advocacy webinar, have never been stopped. We also welcome to work with our partners and also local subnational stakeholders to organize a number of preparatory events towards the 7th summit. So one of them, or also the upcoming one, will be actually by next week on 9th of July. with a focus of the webinar to promote the engagement of local and subnational governments and also the related stakeholders into the Edinburgh process for the post-2020 framework. This webinar will have a focus on China, but of course we also will invite a number of international participants, including, for example, as you can see, the Aichi prefecture, who is leading also the goals, as well as this webinar is co-organized between ICLEI and the Scottish government, the team in Beijing, but also with the support of CBD Secretariat and also the Ministry of Environment and Ecology of China. We have already invited a number of key regions and cities, as you see, like Beijing, Yunnan province, the host region, and also Kunming. We will be speaking here, and we will provide English and Chinese interpretation by the webinar. So we welcome you to join this exchange and virtual dialogue with us. At this summit, we will of course discuss and elaborate the ideas and proposals on preparing the 7th City Summit. So this is a good opportunity for us to further elaborate on the Edinburgh process and post-2020 framework, but also to reinforce our joint actions and commitment towards contributing to the global biodiversity process and new targets under the new framework, which is expected to be adopted by the COP15. So below down by the left side, there is a QR code that you can scan and get the Zoom link and register yourself for this webinar. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me or my colleagues for assistance. We welcome you, and we look forward to see you at the webinar on 9th of July. So that is my brief update on the summit and also plan. We will keep you updated in the coming weeks and months when we have more confirmation on the logistics and the dates, particularly together also with the other offices and the colleagues. So if you have any questions or any proposal, so please try to follow up with this email address and also our website information, but also contact me, always being welcomed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shu. Very punctual briefing and updating, in fact, on what's going on and what we might be expecting for the next COP, in spite of the uncertainties and of the challenges which are ahead of us. And very interesting to be learning about plenary, the thematic sessions, the pavilion, the exhibition, the adoption of the Kunming Declaration. So just a lot is going on, and I'm sure that everything is under your strong and punctual control. So we are just moving towards the end of our webinar today. I don't know whether there are questions or answers. Okay, there is. I guess I understand that there is a question for Shu. Do we have the time to address this question? Right, we do. There is an answer. There is a question. Okay, whomever has the question can please put it in the chat or just address the question itself directly. Okay, I found it. Okay, the question to you, will there be opportunities for cities to highlight ongoing biodiversity action and outcome during the seventh summit? Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. Yes, absolutely, because the summit is for local and subnational governments to demonstrate their actions and commitments. So definitely we consider this. That's why I said that we have developed and designed a number of thematic sessions for cities to demonstrate their actions. This is one by offering speaking slots. Of course, we have to follow up and discuss the formality and the possibility. But secondly, we have proposed to the host country and host city to allow for a space for more exchange by organizing pavilions and also offline and online exhibitions for dedicated showcasing and exhibition of best practices or cases. So this is still ongoing. We will keep you updated. I think such kind of opportunity definitely will be provided by the summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really great to hear. Then I guess that we're just moving towards the end of our webinar today. In fact, no more questions. Thank you from the I'm getting messages in between, so no more messages. Thank you so much. Both Kobe and Shu brought up cities with nature, and prompted you to be signing up. If any of the cities that are just our audience today have not signed up yet, as Kobe likes to say, it's a big tent. It's a place where to be co-sharing experiences and tools and resources and services. That's a place where we just hold hands with each other for city to be moving on their biodiversity agendas and nature-based solutions. So please sign up. Very happy to be having you within our Cities with Nature platform and initiative. This is also, all the recordings will be available at this very link that you can see in this slide. Thank you so much for joining this webinar, and we see you. The next one will be on the 5th of August, and happy to be having you again. Thank you and goodbye.